Open the drawer you avoid cleaning. There is probably a cable for a phone you no longer own, a takeout menu from a restaurant with an app, 3 rubber bands, a mystery key, and a charger that might still work if you could remember what it charges. You pick up the cable. You know you have not used it in years. Then a sentence appears in your head. I might need this someday. So the cable goes back into the drawer. That small decision feels almost ridiculous. Yet it points to a much older problem. For most of human history, throwing away a useful resource could be expensive. Sometimes it could be dangerous. Today, the same basic caution operates in a world of cheap objects, one-click shopping, storage units, and closets deep enough to hide decisions for years. Is your junk drawer really the result of an ancient fear of famine? The answer is more interesting than a simple yes. Storage helped our ancestors survive, and uncertainty still makes modern people stock up. But a cluttered home is not an archaeological site, and hoarding disorder is not just a prehistoric instinct with too many cardboard boxes. To understand the difference, we have to go back to a time when "I might need this later" could be a very good reason to keep something. Imagine a community living near the Dead Sea more than 11,000 years ago. The people at Dhra, in what is now Jordan, gathered and processed wild plants before fully domesticated agriculture had taken over. Food did not arrive on a weekly truck. A good harvest window could be short. Seeds appeared in season, animals moved, weather changed, and whatever could not be saved might not be available when the cold or dry months arrived. Archaeologists at Dhra found purpose-built granaries dating to roughly 11,300 to 11,175 years ago. These were not random piles in the corner of a house. They were engineered storage spaces with suspended floors that allowed air to circulate and helped protect food from rodents. The granaries appeared before domesticated plants, and large settled villages became common in the region. People were not merely finding food, they were planning for a future version of themselves who might be hungry. That ability changed human life. Stored food could carry a group through a lean season, support people who were sick, and preserve seed for later planting. It also created new problems. Someone had to build the storehouse, guard it, decide who could use it, and remember what belonged to whom. Storage was never just about stuff. It was about time. A basket of grain in autumn could become survival in winter. A dried piece of meat could become insurance against a failed hunt. A repaired tool could spare hours of work when raw material was hard to find. In that environment, throwing away something useful because it was inconvenient would make little sense. Resources took time and energy to replace. Future shortage was not an abstract possibility. It happened. Our modern world still gives us flashes of that uncertainty. In early 2020, Americans walked into stores and found long empty shelves where toilet paper, canned food, sanitizer, and bottled water had been. One person saw an empty shelf and bought extra at the next store. Someone else saw the loaded cart and assumed the shortage must be getting worse. The behavior fed itself. Research conducted during the pandemic found that panic buying was strongly connected to worries about shortages of food and necessary supplies. Health anxiety and watching other people panic buy also mattered. Buying extra created a quick sense of control when nobody knew what the next week would look like. That does not mean everyone buying toilet paper had suddenly developed hoarding disorder. Panic buying is usually tied to a specific threat and a limited period. When the threat fades and supply returns, the behavior can fade with it. Still, the episode exposed a sensitive switch. Show people uncertainty, visible scarcity, and other people rushing for supplies, and the future suddenly feels close enough to shop for. The same switch can operate quietly. You keep the spare screws because the exact size may be impossible to find later. You save the shipping box because something might need to be returned. You leave the hotel soap in a cabinet because throwing away a usable object feels wasteful. None of this is automatically irrational. A backup has value when it has a likely use, a known location, and a reasonable limit. The trouble begins when every object presents a possible future emergency. That old cable might fit something. That cracked container could hold something. That stack of magazines may contain an article you will want one day. The future can make a case for almost anything. Ownership adds another layer. Behavioral studies have repeatedly found that people may value an object more once it belongs to them. Researchers call this the endowment effect, though its strength varies among people and across cultures. An object you own is no longer just an object. It can become part of a plan, a memory, or your idea of yourself. The college sweatshirt is evidence of who you were. Your grandfather's broken watch holds a person inside it. A box of art supplies belongs to the version of you who is definitely going to start painting again. Throwing the object away can feel like throwing away its possible future or the memory attached to it. Researchers studying hoarding disorder find that people often give familiar reasons for saving things. The object may be useful. It may contain important information. It may carry a memory. Discarding it may feel wasteful or irresponsible. Most of us have had those thoughts. The difference is their reach and intensity. The American Psychiatric Association defines hoarding disorder by persistent difficulty parting with possessions, distress connected to discarding, and clutter that interferes with the normal use of living spaces. A collection displayed on shelves is not the same thing. Neither is an overfilled garage that still works as a garage. When a kitchen can no longer be used for cooking, a bed cannot be reached, or rooms become unsafe, the issue has moved far beyond being messy. It is also not a character flaw. Calling someone lazy misses what happens at the moment of decision. In one brain imaging study, 43 people with hoarding disorder, 31 people with obsessive-compulsive disorder, and 33 healthy participants made real choices about whether to keep or destroy paper items. Some items belonged to them, others did not. For the hoarding disorder group, decisions about their own possessions produced unusually high activity in the anterior cingulate cortex and insula compared with the other groups. Those regions are involved in noticing significance, conflict, and internal distress. The pattern also tracked with hoarding severity and indecisiveness. This does not mean scientists found a hoarding spot in the brain. Brain regions do many jobs, and one imaging study cannot explain a person's life. The finding shows something more modest. Deciding about a personal possession can become emotionally expensive in a way that outsiders do not see. Keeping the item ends the decision. It prevents the feared mistake. For the moment, anxiety drops. Then the next item arrives. This is where the popular story about ancestral famine begins to break down. Yes, humans have a long history of saving resources. Yes, perceived scarcity can trigger stockpiling. Some hoarding tendencies also run in families, though genes, learned behavior, and shared environments are difficult to separate. But researchers have not discovered a specific inherited memory that tells you to keep every jar because your ancestors starved. One study comparing people with hoarding disorder, OCD, and healthy controls found that the hoarding groups reported more stressful life events. Yet the researchers found no link between material deprivation and hoarding in that sample. The study was small and retrospective, so it does not settle the question. It does warn us against the neatest explanation. Hoarding disorder appears to have many possible contributors: difficulties with attention and organization, intense attachment to possessions, fear of making the wrong decision, avoidance of distress, family vulnerability, and painful life events. No single Stone Age story covers all of that. The ancient part of the story is not a secret famine recording buried in your DNA. It is a broad rule that often worked. Keep useful resources when replacement is uncertain. Modern life changed both sides of that rule. Objects are now easy to acquire. Advertising gives them possible identities before we even buy them. Homes contain more storage space than many ancient communities could have imagined, and online shopping can deliver another object before we have decided where the last one belongs. At the same time, the cost of keeping things is easy to ignore. One cable takes almost no room. Neither does one bag, one receipt, or one spare container. The cost appears only after hundreds of small decisions have merged into a room you no longer control. Our ancestors had physical limits. Food spoiled. A mobile group could carry only so much. Even a granary had a wall. Modern storage can postpone the limit. Closets, garages, basements, rented units, And digital shopping carts let the sentence, "I might need it someday," survive almost indefinitely. So the next time you hold an object over the trash and feel an unexpected jolt of resistance, do not assume you are irrational. Your brain is calculating possible loss, future usefulness, memory, identity, and regret, often in a fraction of a second. But do not blame a hungry ancestor for the whole drawer, either. The useful question is not, could this matter someday? Almost anything could. Ask, what future am I honestly keeping this for? And how much space should that future get? That is the line between storage that serves you and storage you serve. What is the one object you know you do not need, but still cannot throw away? A cable? A piece of clothing? An old box? Something else? Tell us what it is and why it stays. Then watch every ancient instinct still controlling you today to see what other old survival rules are still negotiating with your modern life.